Well, good morning. And welcome to the First Unitarian Church. I think you'll agree with me, this has been quite a week. The witch hunt found some witches. Jeff Sessions found his voice. And the LDS Church found reasons to oppose medical marijuana. But don't worry, they have absolutely nothing to do with Utah state politics, so we're safe. It's been quite a week, and we find ourselves in church to catch our breath, to catch a little fuel for the Spirit, to catch some conversation about where these confusing times may lead. Coming together as one congregation helps us focus on having faith in life itself. We may not always understand it, but we do believe it has endless possibilities for good. We gather to do wise planting so that the generations to come will reap abundantly and live in a world of peace and justice and sustainability. Because we work in the fields of promise, faithful, very faithful, that someday they will become fields of reality. Symbol of light and of knowledge, symbol of warmth and freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. May we open our service, turning our hymn books, please, to number 14. I just changed my mind. 21. Let's now open to hymn number. I just want to see if David was on his toes. Okay.
grateful, grateful, grateful. I am grateful for each one of you, and I hope that you are grateful for one another. Grateful for this house, grateful for this time we can spend together. This time of the year, when the first burnished leaves of early fall appear on the trees, farmers markets and grocery bins are overflowing and you can't eat it fast enough. And you think about a jacket in the morning, but no, not quite, not yet. We are grateful. This time of the year, when the kids are getting up early and packing their lunches and wearing tennis shoes instead of flip-flops and combing their hair and double-checking their reflections in the mirror, we are grateful. And even though the world hasn't stopped turning for us, even though we still turn on the news and hear the same dreary, depressing, scary stories and wonder whether misery and depression ever thought about taking a summer vacation themselves, even so, we are grateful. Grateful for what we have, grateful for who we have, grateful for each other and for this place and for this time we can spend together. Let's spend this moment in silent gratitude. Source of all, to thee we raise this, our hymn of grateful praise. Amen.
Hi, Monica.
Hi, Tom.
Did you hear the news?
From yesterday?
Yeah.
I did, yeah. Awful.
What the hell is going on right now?
I don't know. It's insane.
How about that thing from last night?
Oh my God, I saw that. How does it keep happening?
Doesn't make sense.
Well, then I woke up this morning and I saw that other thing.
Yeah, it was so sad. Beyond sad. I mean, how about later this morning? Remember that thing?
Oh, I forgot about that. Jesus.
Did you hear what just happened?
When?
Just now, while we were talking.
No, I must have missed it. I was trying to do a news blackout for a little while. Is it bad?
Really bad.
Worse than the thing that happened when you said really bad?
I don't know about worse. It was different.
But what did you say?
I said it was different.
Oh, sorry. I'm a little distracted because something horrifying just happened.
Really? What?
Oh, wait, false alarm. I think I imagined it because I couldn't deal with the lull.
You know, after that thing last night, I promised myself I was going to do something. Like get active.
Okay, so what did you do?
I tweeted.
Did you really?
Yep, yeah.
What did you write?
I wrote, "This has to stop."
Okay, but how many exclamation points did it have? Did you capitalize any of it?
Yes, I capitalized, and it had 3 exclamation points.
Oh, okay, well, you're on the front lines of change then.
I know.
You know, maybe I should try a news blackout for a little while, too.
You should. It's healthy.
Okay, I'm doing it right now.
Oh, my God. You just missed some crazy shit.
See, I knew that was going to happen. I hate how out of touch I am.
There is so much going on lately that I feel like I'm getting numb to it all. Do you ever worry about that?
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I just stare at terrible things on the screen with 0 emotion on my face. Then eventually I snap out of it and start pointing and laughing, so well, that's good.
Yeah. You know, I'm scared that I'm getting numb to things too, but then I wake up screaming from asphyxiating night terrors, and I'm relieved I'm still normal.
There is so much anger and helplessness flooding my thoughts. I worry that soon there won't be any room for other emotions, like dread.
Well, the key for me has been to actually just stop enjoying happiness. I've trained myself to actually be repulsed by it. That way I don't miss it.
I did that with hope. It's great.
I hate puppies now.
Oh, they're hideous.
Yeah, but you know those moments between crying about one thing and crying about the next thing when you finally have time to catch your breath and just cry about nothing?
Yeah, but I feel like I've been taking those moments for granted.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, but I just saw what's going to happen in like 10 minutes, and it's not good.
Wait. You can see into the future?
Yes, I can.
You mean you're no longer a prisoner of the 24-hour news cycle? You can see more?
Tom, the future news cycle is within all of our grasps. You just need to know how to unlock it.
Will you show me?
Yes, but I warn you, you must truly want to see.
Oh, I do want to see. I want to see everything.
Okay, then close your eyes.
Ooh, I see it. I see it all. It's horrible. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know if it's life imitating art or art imitating life, but true story, Monica will bear this out. Earlier this week when we did a run-through of the script, because we had our phones there, when we thought we were finished, we just went on, and she said, "Oh my God, Manafort." And I said, "Cohn." And then we realized, my God, this is too true. This really governs our life. Anyway. All right? Well, once again, a special welcome to everyone, and for those of you who are with us for the first time, welcome, and hope you are able to hang around if your schedules permit for a coffee hour following our service and a chance for us to get better acquainted. I have just a couple of announcements. The first one is just a reminder that one of the great things this church is doing and has done for the past, 14 years or so, is a small group ministry. A wonderful opportunity for groups of 10 to 12 people to meet once a month. It's the same group throughout the year, and we start in October. And it's a wonderful way to really have deep and rich conversations with actually a new set of folks. It's not a book group, it's not a therapy group, it's just an opportunity to get together with other folks and explore. And it's really a very worthwhile time. And so we are now in the process of registration. If you have already attended small groups, I think most of you have. I think we have probably 125 people divided into different small groups. You need to register again, and if you're new and may want to take a look at this, please register. And Sandy Green, if you don't know how to do this online, Sandy Green, please stand up for a second. See Sandy during the coffee hour, and she will guide you through the process. Certainly, thank you, Sandy. Certainly worth everyone's while. Just a quick look at the number of announcements. The young adult group, you notice the time change. They're going to have their brunch on September 2nd. And I'm sure many of you know Art Lee. He is a bass singer in our illustrious choir, and he is doing a wonderful program on the 31st of August called Trees, Songs, Photos, and Stories. Also, the mindfulness meditation group, which is just a fantastic experience, led by Shirley Ray. Please note that they're going to meet at 9 o'clock in the parlor, and once we start going to 2 services again, starting September 9th, they will meet at 10 o'clock. And of course, our sanctuary work always needs volunteers. We are upwards of 200 volunteers, and guess what? We can use some more. So please take, if you have a chance, take the opportunity to sign up as a volunteer. We would appreciate it very, very much. The offering will now gratefully be received, a chance to greet one another and bid each other a fine good morning. One of the fascinating things about this endless summer is the emergence of a new etiquette for dinner parties. Following a few too many racist tweets and narcissistic temper tantrums, after perfecting the art of the really bad deal, and alienating a few too many allies, the new protocol for when two or more progressives are gathered is never mention his name. Uttering that one-syllable name will guarantee a dark cloud of depression to descend on any dinner party. So progressives have initiated this new decorum whereby they chat about everything except that which is most on their minds. We become very careful not to invoke the wrath of our host. But at a recent dinner party, I took a gamble. I did not mention his name, but it was obvious, probably, to whom I was referring. And I did this under the pretense of biblical scholarship. Psalm 56, to be precise. Frankly, I thought it'd be a good conversation starter. Hey, everyone. Anybody here read Psalm 56 recently? It's amazing. Nobody seems to have included Psalm 56 on their summer reading list. But they ask, as I had hoped, they asked, what is it about? Well, I see this as an open invitation to, of course, respond as a biblical critic. So I tell them, this is what goes down in Psalm 56. There's this religious guy who doesn't really like what's happening in society. So he says to God, you may be God, but you're doing a pretty bad job. You are creating men who unleash tyranny upon the earth. And I know right away they're thinking, Tom's going to say his name. But I don't. I let them figure out who the wicked man might be. Right from the womb, these wicked men have gone astray. These double talkers have been in error since their birth. Their poison is the poison of the snake. They are deaf as the adder that blocks its ears so as not to hear the magician's music and the clever snake charmer's spells. Sounds like something you would find in the failing New York Times. But Psalm 56 is better, because this guy actually tells God what he needs to do in order to rectify the situation. Verse 6, go look it up, verse 6, it goes like this. God, knock out his teeth. And then another verse or two down, it says, Yahweh, wrench out the fangs of the savage lion. May he drain away like water running to waste. May he wither like trodden grass. And when I'm done with it, everybody at the party cheers, hoping that God will kick this wicked man in the mouth and knock out all his teeth. It's all very cathartic. The Bible as therapy. It's good for you. But while we're waiting for God to act, which may be quite a while, what happens is that we take on the responsibility of keeping track of all the unimaginable, despicable acts of injustice that this wicked man performs. We watch him closely, thereby becoming news junkies, despite the warning that this habit is hazardous to our health. And I was struck this summer by the number of journalists and pundits and opinion writers who give us permission, in fact, who advise us to take a few weeks off from the news. Now, one newspaper writer with a syndicated column recommended not reading the newspaper for 2 weeks as a good tonic for the spirit. It's like a minister saying, I think it would be better if you didn't come to church for a while. You'd be much better off. So I've tried news blackouts for a day. I've avoided MSNBC for a period of time, but now I have found a really good solution for how best I can handle the news. I read the news sparingly, but do so only while listening to reggae. In fact, I blast the music of reggae as though the greater the volume, the more protection it gives. So my head, bobs and weaves to the rhythmic pulse of reggae, which carries messages meant to diffuse any bad news at all. So as I'm reading about the president's latest foray into unreality, the very upbeat vocalist is singing, "Every little thing, it's going to be all right. Every little thing, it's going to be all right." Everybody. Every little thing, it's going to be all right. If I learned one thing, every reggae song has one sentence. But it's a good one. It's a good one. The best novel I read this summer was Warlight by Michael Ondaatje, who also wrote The English Patient. In one section, he writes about a German word which has two meanings. The word is schwer, which means both difficult and also heavy. Ondaatje writes, Gustav Mahler put the word schwer beside certain passages in his musical scores, meaning difficult, heavy. We were told this as if it was a warning. We need to prepare for such moments in order to deal with them efficiently, in case we suddenly had to take control of our wits. Those times exist for all of us. Just as no musical score relies on only one pitch or level of effort from musicians in the orchestra, sometimes it relies on silence. It was a strange warning to be given, to accept that nothing was safe anymore. Nothing was safe anymore. Schwer. Difficult. Heavy. And I would often pause this summer and consider Mahler's warning, written in the margins. Schwer. Now, these are difficult times, and they weigh heavily upon us. I think Kurt Vonnegut came pretty close in describing this when he coined the term heavy gravity. That's how it's feeling these days. And I think about Mahler's warning to musicians, or perhaps his warning to us all. We need to accept that nothing is safe anymore. And when I think about all the protections in our lives that were undone by one wicked man of biblical proportions, the environment, health care, civil rights, freedom of the press, immigration, I think along the lines that nothing is safe anymore. And therein lies our sadness, concern, worry. Too profound, really, to be expressed in words. And that's why it's so useful to just think, schwer. It's heavy. of all the transgressions of the freedoms intrinsic to democracy, and of all the violations of human decency, just this summer, the removal of immigrant children from their families stands as an act of cruelty in a league of its own. There's nothing really comparable. It was reminiscent of Nazi Germany. It was a dagger in the heart of a huge number of parents and grandparents, as we couldn't help but project, what if it were my 4-year-old physically wrenched from my arms? Nobody, parent or child, recovers from that. And hundreds of families will never find each other again. The separation of immigrant families as a means to attaining the end goal of eliminating Central Americans from crossing the border altogether reached epic proportions of outrage and horror. The scale of opposition, even from a craven Republican Congress, revealed a low threshold for tolerating such inhumanity. And what became acutely visible for all of us was the disastrous result when the legal, the ethical, and the political all collide. Creates the perfect storm for the unthinkable to happen. But there was one positive outcome for the time when political goals, we realize, cannot ignore law. And then it's amazing how law and ethics are all tied up and political comes in. It's amazing. But the good thing that happened was federal Judge Emmett Sullivan ruled that government has to comply with the law. And he went so far as to order the plane already on the ground in El Salvador be turned around to bring back the immigrants who were legally seeking asylum in this country. Now, whether or not we agree with the political goals is not really the point I want to make right now. It's just so disturbing to contemplate that goals were pursued without any regard for the responsibilities that come with government. Government has to be accountable for its actions, as we all do. There's a cautionary tale here that warns us of the danger of pursuing goals without measuring the consequences of trying to achieve them. Isn't the injunction, do no harm, the most fundamental ethical principle to be considered in the process of forming a goal? I mean, isn't that what an enlightened society, or for that matter, an enlightened person must consider first and foremost? Do no harm. And this concept of enlightenment relates directly to the Buddhist idea of mindfulness. The ground of not causing harm is mindfulness, a sense of clear seeing with respect and compassion for what it is we see. It comes as a shock to realize how much we have blinded ourselves to some of the ways in which we can cause harm. So this blindness is not limited to our president. All of us need to understand more fully how often we just don't see, we just don't get it when we insist that the ends justify the means. Reaching our goal has greater value than the road we take to get there. We need to ask, so what has moral value? Our actions that reveal our character, or the outcome of our actions? Which has moral value? Now, given our increasingly hysterical, polarized, rabid political environment, I believe it's important for all of us to clearly reflect upon our principles and how they play a role in yours and mine, in our everyday lives. This will lead to greater self-understanding if we determine whether or not the ends really justify the means when it comes to trying to achieve objectives, political or otherwise. It's an important exercise, especially in these turbulent times, to reach some conclusion about how we might, like the president, insist that the ends do justify the means. Now, he was not the only one to come up with that conclusion. Many of us will say, yeah, the ends justify the means, no matter how horrible the means may prove themselves to be. Well, that's sometimes taken care of pretty easily. Many of us will immediately jump to a classic situation calling for self-defense. For example, and you know the argument, if someone is coming at your family with the intent to inflict harm, the ethical decision might be to harm the aggressor to protect your family, despite the fact that harming another person is in itself an immoral act. Yeah, that's used, but it really doesn't add much to the argument that the ends justify the means, because in this case it's a little too obvious. And even, let's say, when you witness a perpetrator hitting an old lady over the head and he tries to take her purse, it's not you now who's being attacked, but you're still justified to use violence, if required, to protect your family or to protect those who might be vulnerable, like this old lady. Now, given these examples may, for many, feel like a pretty quick fix, an assumption that the ends can often justify the means. But I like to think this is only in very extreme and rare circumstances. For a principled person, someone who is mindful, the ends almost never justify the means. The president's justification for protecting our borders is really a teachable for all of us. There was no examination or reflection on the harm caused in pursuit of the goal. And on a much simpler level, we all, on a routine basis, face situations where we are confronted with the choice to do something we know is wrong. But perhaps we do it anyway because, our goal, getting there, makes it all worthwhile. Now, although this is more apparent in politics, we all encounter the temptation in a self-serving way to justify our means of getting from here to there. It's just I'm stuck here in my own thoughts because it's amazing what we will do in order to get what we want. Maybe it's human nature, I don't know. Not particularly mindful, not mindful of the harm caused. We like to pretend it's all for the greater good. Ever hear that argument before? It's for the greater good. But in fact, our actions are almost always pursued for personal gain. And politicians specialize in this justification. Maybe that's why we're inherently suspicious of all politicians. But the rest of us need to think about it more carefully. Are our ethics questionable in the pursuit of our ends? Now, some can pick selectively that certain historical instances exist where questionable actions led to a favorable outcome overall. And they may well be right. But I think that for each instance, there are hundreds of examples of the exact opposite. I mean, wouldn't you agree that much of the tragic state of the world as it is today can be directly linked to justifying unethical behavior, to advance self-interest, one's goals? So much unnecessary suffering in the world today derives from individuals making immoral decisions they justify to themselves and others as being necessary. Gotta do it, it's necessary for the larger goal. And what remains so disturbing is that these larger goals end up benefiting the person taking and justifying the questionable actions. And there's your red flag, be it in the Iraq War, separating immigrant families, or more personally, just cheating on an exam. In the field of ethics, this is referred to as the slippery slope. The moment you justify one very wrong action to achieve some noble goal, what's to stop you from the next, even more unethical question, or the next, and the next? I mean, just think how many wars and massacres and bloodshed around the world can be linked to the ends justifying the means. Now, persons who are not mindful and lean towards, let's say, egotistical goals will always insist that the ends justify the means. The blatant inequality in the new tax plan, for example, amassing greater wealth for those who already benefit from obscene amounts of wealth, justifies the goal, despite the harm that will force the poor to suffer even more. Those who are mindful of the harm and destruction inherent in the goal will reject this line of thinking. They will consciously adopt a moral value that holds actions are to be morally judged more rigorously than the outcomes. Actions are to be morally judged more rigorously than the outcomes. So law, ethics, politics converge more conspicuously in these times today, where the political goals subvert the moral principles so many of us hold so dear. The principles that are, in fact, paramount to a civilized society. And that's why we try to have these laws wrapped around the ethics, or the ethics wrapped around the laws, and then the tension with political goals. All just converges in a very complex manner. Here's an interesting lesson that I think we've all learned since the last election. By using the tactic of fear, the politician will convince far too many people that a greater good lies ahead, which justifies the means taken to achieve the goal. And by extension, every person, in living her and his life must be mindful or conscious of the fears that we personally are trying to avoid. Fear of failing, fear of rejection, fear of living meaningless lives. And so we become mindless. We become blind to the means by which we try to improve our situation. Schwer. It's difficult. It's heavy. How do we act? Well, I have no formula really because it's mostly situational. But as we witness a wicked man we hope will have his teeth knocked out by God, the point is we could be a little more circumspect ourselves. We just need to understand that the ends do not usually justify the means. In politics and also in our everyday lives. Because if we have an honest appraisal, we can see perhaps that we may be a bit too invested in our personal goals and not see the casualties that lie on the road to attaining those goals. Do no harm. Do no harm in evaluating our decisions. Keep that in mind. Do no harm. That might be a good place to start. Do no harm. So be it. Can we close our service turning our hymn books, please, to number 298, and let us sing just the first 3 verses. As we extinguish the chalice, I need to ask you, anybody know the first psalm, Psalm 1? Blessed are the man and the woman who have grown beyond their greed and have put an end to their hatred and no longer nourish illusions. But they delight in the way things are and keep their hearts open day and night. They are like trees planted near flowing rivers which bear fruit when they are ready. Their leaves will not fall or wither. Amen.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Monica. And let us thank the coffee makers who are ready for, yeah. And let's tell them verbally. So let's break for coffee and conversation, and we'll see ya.